On today's show, the Nets dominate the tanking Kings to snap a 10-game losing streak. I'll tell you why Brooklyn still faces an uphill battle to secure one of the top 3 lottery spots on today's episode of Locked On Nets.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets. I'm Erik Slater. On today's show, the Nets defeat the Sacramento Kings 116-99 to snap a 10-game losing streak. I'm going to talk about the win and its impact on the Nets tank and the tank race moving forward. I'll also touch on some of the rookie performances, some of the other young guys, and then also Cam Boozer's Duke career coming to a shocking end in the Elite Eight. So let's get into all that. But first, this Nets win, snapping a 10-game losing streak, a win that is going to upset some Nets fans because obviously the main storyline entering this game and the main storyline for the rest of the season is the tank race, the Nets spot in the draft lottery standings. Where are they going to finish? And they entered this game right neck and neck with the Kings. You know, they were tied with the Washington Wizards going into this game for second place, and the Kings were right behind both of them with 2 more wins than the Nets and the Wizards. And the Nets come out in this game, and the Kings, tanked a little bit harder than the Nets did in this game. But the Kings were also on the second night of a back-to-back. You look at it, the Nets still played some of their veterans in this game. They had Nick Claxton active, Terrence Mann active, and the Kings were on a second night of a back-to-back, and they held out almost all of their players. So my takeaway from this game is that there's going to be a lot of fans who are angry about it, but angry about the win. But I'm not sure that the Nets really could have lost to this Kings team tonight. I'm not sure, how much more they could have done to where it would have really made that big of a difference. And look, if you're a Nets fan who's watching this game or looking at the Nets strategy from a tank perspective during this game and saying, why is Nick Claxton playing? Why is Terrence Mann playing? Noah Clowney just came back from a wrist injury. Maybe you think that the Nets should have held him out a little bit longer. Look, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm not going to say that that is an invalid perspective to have or invalid feelings to have about this game. I hear you. But I'm also going to say, you look at the Kings, they're on the second night of a back-to-back, and you look at the lineup that they put out there in this game with Devin Carter, Nick Clifford, Precious Achiuwa, Daquan Plowden, and Maxime Reynaud as the starting 5. And then off the bench, you have Daquan Jeffries, Doug McDermott, Killian Hayes, and Dylan Cardwell. How much more are the Nets going to do to win a game like this? Like, you look at who's been the Nets' best player over the last 10, 11 games offensively. It has been Ziaire Williams. He has been the best player and their go-to option, really, offensively during this recent stretch. And Ziaire Williams logs a DNP CD tonight. He did not play. And so that is a tanking move. And you look at the Nets in this game, the only guys, like, if you want to say that Nick Claxton shouldn't have played in this game, I totally hear you. Nick Claxton didn't play in the last game against the Kings, and the Nets ended up winning that one. If you want to say he shouldn't have played tonight, I hear you. That's a fine perspective to have. Outside of that, I mean, Terrence Mann finishes with 8 points on 2 of 3 shooting. He plays 22 minutes. Maybe you think Terrence shouldn't have played. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think he had that much of an impact on this game. Noah Clowney played really well. 15 points, 5 of 11 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, 7 boards. This is Noah's second game back from a right wrist sprain. So if you want to say that the Nets should have held out Noah a little bit longer, that's a fine perspective to have. But Noah's also 21 years old. And you look at the bulk of the Nets rotation in this game, they played the young guys. A lot of the young guys played well. I understand, fans who are mad about this, but I can't say that I'm looking at this game saying, wow, the Nets really screwed up. Like, the Nets really easily, this could have been a loss for them. And, it is what it is. You also look at the on-court product and what happened in this game. The Nets caught a heater from 3. They were hot early on. They finished the game. They made 17 threes. They shot 42% from 3. Sometimes it is what it is. But this outcome really underscores why the Nets face an uphill battle in the draft lottery race, an uphill battle in the tank race, because with the Nets having this recent 10-game losing streak, with them losing that game to the Kings last Sunday, they were starting to push up towards that number 1 spot. I mean, they were right there neck and neck with the Pacers, 1 game behind the Pacers for the number 1 spot in the draft lottery standings. And they actually still are, because they got a little bit of a blessing because the Pacers beat the Miami Heat tonight. So the Nets remain, or they drop to 3rd place. They're now 1 win behind, or have 1 more win than the Wizards. They have 1 more also than the Pacers, and they have 1 fewer win than the Kings. So the Nets lottery range is 1 through 4 right now. But despite all the work that they've done, despite them only having 18 wins, they face an uphill battle. If they want to stay in the top 3 of these odds or potentially get even higher, you look at the remaining schedule and they have a lot of these games against other tanking teams. Like Sacramento tonight, this was a game that I thought was going to be a win, flat out, because I saw it. I saw the Kings on the second night of a back-to-back. I knew after the way that the Kings beat the Nets in the last tank matchup that they were going to sit their guys tonight, especially on the second night of a back-to-back. And I just thought this isn't going to be a game the Nets are going to lose. So they win this game, but then the rest of the schedule, they have matchups against the Wizards, they have 2 matchups against the Bucks, and they have a matchup against the Pacers. And that's at the easiest remaining strength of schedule in the NBA. So despite all the work they've done, it's still an uphill battle. And they're gonna need to do, more things than they did tonight. They're gonna have to tank harder in some of these remaining games, because you look at it right now, they are 3 wins ahead of the Jazz, who are in 5th. The Jazz have 21 wins, the Nets have 18 wins. So you think that they're not going to fall to 5, but if they want to stay in this top 3, they probably can't win more than one more game remaining on the schedule. And I just said they have the Wizards, the Pacers, and the Bucks twice. They're gonna have to lose at least 3 out of those 4 games. So that is going to take some maneuvering, because a team like the Wizards going to be tanking extremely hard during that game. I would expect that they don't play anybody during that game against the Nets. The Bucks, at that point, the Bucks are eliminated right now. Giannis Antetokounmpo is not going to play again this season. They're going to be tanking really hard. The Pacers, another team, also going to be tanking hard. The Pacers are actually a team, though, who I think maybe can be a saving grace for the Nets, because you look at it, the Pacers – actually, it doesn't really matter where the Pacers land in the top 3 spots. All that matters is the Pacers being in one of the top 3 spots, because the Pacers owe their pick, top 4 protected, to the Los Angeles Clippers as part of that Ivica Zubac trade. So the reason you want to be number 1 and not number 3 is to maximize your floor, because the first pick, the number 1 lottery spot, the worst record in the league, can fall no lower than 5. Second can fall to 6. Third can fall to 7th. But for the Pacers, all that matters is being top 4. They don't have to worry about their floor, because if their pick is beyond 4, it goes to the Clippers. It doesn't matter. So all that matters for the Pacers is being in the top 3, because the top 3 lottery spots all have the same odds of getting the number 1 pick or being in the top 4 of the lottery, and that's all that matters. So the Pacers maybe won't be tanking as hard when they play the Nets. We've seen them in recent games. They almost beat the Clippers the other day. They did beat the Heat tonight. So you could say with them beating the Heat, they're going to have to tank a little bit harder. But the 1 through 3, they don't really have to concern themselves. But irregardless, it's the state of the NBA right now. It's the state of the tank race. It's very tightly contested. Teams are going extremely hard to try to get into the top of the lottery mix, because there is such, high-level talent at the top of this draft. And the Nets come out a little bit on the short end of the stick towards the end of the schedule, with them having all of these matchups against these fellow tanking teams. And look, I said it after their last game, the Nets have done a good job tanking, frankly, following those back-to-back wins over the Detroit Pistons and the Memphis Grizzlies. Since then, they've sacked guys, they've shut guys down. They haven't played any of their veterans in the fourth quarter of any games. They've done a good job for the most part. Tonight, they just ran into a game on the schedule where they have a Kings team on the second night of a back-to-back, and a Kings team that did tank a little bit harder than they did. But we'll see. Once they get to, those games against the Wizards, the Pacers, both of those games against the Bucks, if Nick Claxton, if some of these other veterans are playing in those games and the Nets get wins in those games, that's when, you can have a serious beef with some of the process there. But until then, you can, in my opinion, you can, reserve or withhold your judgment. They've done a good job as of late. And you look at it, in a game like tonight, I don't really think there was that much more that they could do. And you did get positive performances from several of the rookies tonight. So I want to talk about that. Nolan Shore, Drake Powell, both had good showings. Also, Ochai Agbaji, who got into the rotation tonight and did some really good things. So what did I see from those guys? What should fans be looking for from them as we enter the offseason? I'll get into all that when I continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's a relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Coming back from the break, continuing today's Locked On Nets episode following Brooklyn's 116-99 win over the Sacramento Kings on Sunday at Barclays Center. And I said this is a game that obviously it's going to ruffle feathers with some Nets fans who are rooting for the tank. But I said I don't think there's that much more that they could have done. I don't think that you can get that angry, with them for this outcome, in my opinion. And another reason for that is that you got positive performances from several rookies in this game. And that's what you're looking for. Like, despite some of the Nets veterans playing in this game, this was not a game that was driven by veterans, a win that was driven by veterans. You look at it, Nick Claxton finishes with 10.7 rebounds, 3 assists, no blocks, or 1 block, no steals, 4 of 8 shooting, plays 23 minutes. Terrence Mann, as I said, 8 points on 2 of 3 shooting in 22 minutes. That was not the biggest reason that the Nets won this game. It really was a lot of the young guys playing well. And you look at it, Noah Clowney, I touched on before, 15 points, 5-11 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. It was, I'm sure, good for at least some Nets fans to see Noah come back from that wrist sprain and have a positive performance. And outside of that, the rookies, several of the rookies played well tonight. Nolan Troy finishes with 17 points, 6 assists, 4 turnovers. Want to clean that up a bit, but 6 of 13 from the field, 3 of 5 from the free throw line, only 2 of 9 from 3. But a game where Nolan Troy, he plays 20 or 30 minutes in this game. He finishes with 17 points on 13 shots. He goes 4 for 4 on 2s, gets to the free throw line 5 times, has 6 assists. That's a positive performance from Nolan Troy. And some of the buckets that you saw from Nolan in the first half, I thought were pretty fluid. You saw him getting downhill. You saw him score over Maxime Reynaud, and you saw the speed really tonight. Like, obviously, that's Noah's calling card, is the speed, the downhill juice, the first step. But you really saw him tonight during this first half. There wasn't a lot of Kings players or the Kings guards and Maxime Reynaud in the drop coverage. They couldn't hang with Nolan. Like, he was getting to the basket with ease. He was finishing, as I said, 4 of 4 on 2s, 6 dimes. A good performance from him. And then Drake Powell records a season high tonight with 16 points, finishes with 16 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 0 turnovers, 6 of 8 from the field, and 4 of 6 from 3 in 28 minutes. And this was, for Drake, I'm sure that this was a welcome sight because Drake has been struggling as of late. We know that the 3 ball hasn't been falling. We know that his offensive efficiency has gone down. It just hasn't looked like he's been in a rhythm, in many spurts outside of some nice takes to the basket. So it has been a struggle for Drake as of late. And tonight he sees 4 of 6 threes go through the rim. Like, that's a good development for him. And I think that you saw that he looked more comfortable tonight. I think he looked more comfortable with the spots that he was getting his shots from, 4 of 6 from 3, 2 of 2 from 2. And I think with Drake, like, the 3-point shooting is going to be a really big deal because I've said it, his efficiency from beyond the arc is going to be, I think, the biggest swing skill for him because he's not like Ben Saraf or Nolan Troy or these guys who had this natural, off the dribble juice. Like, Drake has shown some things in spurts, but that's not his bag. So the 3-point shooting is going to be big. And you look at it entering this game, Drake is down to 28.5% from 3 on 6.7 attempts per 100 possessions. So it's going to be a concern. Seeing a few go through the hoop tonight for him, I think, is obviously a good confidence building thing for him. And I think that you're going to see him play more, throughout these last 8 games to close the season. So, when you look at these tanking games, like, if you're going to win games, you want to see positive performances from the rookies, from the young guys. And you got that tonight looking at, a guy like Noah Clowney, a guy like Nolan Troy, a guy like Drake Powell. And then beyond that, Ochai Agbaji finishes tonight with a season high for the Nets. He had 18 points on 6 of 11 shooting from the field, 2 of 6 from 3, 4 of 4 from the free throw line in 25 minutes. He was a plus 20. In Ochai, I think you saw his athleticism really kind of jump off the screen or the court tonight, wherever you were watching from. Only 2 of 6 from 3, but you saw the defensive effort was very good. I think he's a guy who, is still a 6'5" guy, good length, very good athleticism and strength. I thought you saw him doing a good job defensively in this game. I mean, you look at it, the Nets forced the Kings into 15 turnovers. They hold them to 43% shooting from the field, 31% from 3 on 32 3-point attempts. They did a good job or a better job not fouling tonight than they did against the Lakers. I think they allowed 42 free throws against the Lakers tonight. That goes down to 25. So, Ochai Agbaji, his defense, I think, was a big part of that because you look at it, he's still a guy who has some plus tools on the defensive end. And then offensively, I think you saw some nice takes to the rim. And then you also saw him playing out in transition, which is something that, the Nets are really going to want to do, as they start to gain a little bit more of a semblance of continuity offensively with some of the rookie point guards gaining some more experience, with hopefully them limiting the turnovers. Playing out in transition is going to be a big thing for them. And we've seen Ochai be able to do that because he's a guy who can run. He's a guy who's very athletic. And we've also seen the three-point shooting, although he was only 2 of 6 tonight, he had a couple rim out on him. It's become, better. It's getting a little bit back to kind of what it looked like before his stretch early in the season this year with Toronto, when he really struggled. I mean, Ochai last season, he averaged, 10.4 points, and he shot 50% from the field and 40% from three. And then coming out of the gate this year, he was really just in a major shooting slump, 18.5% from three on very limited volume. So that was a big reason why he fell out of favor in Toronto. That's a big reason why he was salary dumped at the deadline. But since coming to the Nets, he's shooting 45.3% from the field, which is decent, and then 35.3% from three, while attempting 9.3 per 100 possessions. So it's small sample size, but I think Ochai's shooting ability, his shooting stroke, has looked better as of late. The tools that he has defensively and his ability to play out in transition. I think that those are the things that you could say maybe could keep him around. Am I going to say that it's very likely that I think Ochai is back next season? I wouldn't say likely, but I would say that he's a guy who's 25 years old, has some past pedigree as a former, Big 12 Player of the Year, a former first-round pick. So, I think was an interesting no-cost flyer, for the Nets, who they got a second-round pick alongside him for absorbing his salary. They had the cap space they needed to use, and he has had more than a couple of positive performances as of late. So, good game from Ochai and good game from several of these other Nets young guys who I think, you look at it, if it's going to be a win that's fueled by the young guys, I don't think that you could have, too much of a problem with it, even if you think a guy like Nick Claxton or Terrence Mann should have sat in this one. So that is my take on the young guy performances. Last thing I have for you guys on today's episode is a crazy end to Cam Boozer's freshman season at Duke, with the Blue Devils dropping a stunning last-second loss to UConn in the Elite Eight. So what happened in that game? What do I think of Cam Boozer and what we could see potentially from him as we enter the draft with him as a target for the Nets? I'll get into all that when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. Guys, there's so many to choose from, but Tropical Burst is my absolute favorite. It's fruity with a tasty flow that gives off island vibes. Also, Sour Apple, another great one. Crisp, tangy, delicious tart. There's also some sleepers on the board. You talk about Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy, all new flavor innovations over at 5-Hour Energy, and they have more of those coming, so definitely keep your eye out. Guys, 5-Hour Energy shots are great. They've got something for everyone. They give you a boost with zero sugar if you need that kick to just go about your day. So find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, that's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. And the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? That's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode. Started off talking about Brooklyn's 116-99 win, the Sacramento Kings, the implication on the tank race, some of the rookie performances. But I want to close it out taking a step into the college basketball world, because we are well into the NCAA tournament. We're in the Elite Eight, and Cam Boozer, who is obviously one of the top 3 prospects in the draft, obviously one of the guys the Nets are hoping to put themselves in position to draft. And the whole reason why there's all this hysteria that I talked about the tank race, about them winning this game against the Kings tonight, about their spot in the draft lottery standings, it's all aimed at getting a player the likes of Cam Boozer. And Cam's Duke career came to a stunning close tonight. And I'm sure that a lot of Nets fans were watching the game. I'm sure that a lot of Nets fans saw it. I will admit, while I was sitting up in the media section during this Nets game. I had the Duke game on the TV. I was watching Cam Boozer. I've had an eye on him for the whole season, and especially during the NCAA tournament. And Duke, after leading by more than 20 points, they are up 2 with 10 seconds remaining with the ball. It gets inbound to Cam Boozer. He gives it up. The ball finds Caden Boozer in the middle of the court. He sees a Duke teammate running wide open down by the other end of the court, down by the Duke basket for what would have been a wide open layup or a wide open dunk that probably seals the game. He tries to throw it over the top, and a couple of UConn defenders get their hands up. They tip it. It's a turnover, and the ball finds Braylon Mullins, and he drains a 3 from the logo with about 0.2 seconds left in the game. That completely stuns John Shire. It stuns Carlos Boozer. It stuns both of the Boozer brothers, the entire Duke faithful, and UConn gets a stunning victory. And, I was watching this game. A lot of us had this game on the TVs, these mini TVs that they have up in the media section where the media seating is at Barclays Center. And there was an audible, wow, on press row when that shot was hit. And, obviously a wild ending. But for Cam Boozer, it marks the end, of his Duke tenure, and it marks a historic freshman season. Historic there's no other way to describe it. Historic freshman season. And Cam has been a player who has dominated at every step of his basketball journey, from the youth into the AAU circuit, into his high school career, into his freshman season at Duke, led Duke to, I don't know what they were, 34-3 they finished the year at. Unbelievable record. He was the focal point of everything that they were doing offensively, and he really had an extremely solid game tonight. Definitely his best game of the tournament. You look at it, he finishes with 27 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 10 of 21 from the field, 6 of 8 from the free throw line in 39 minutes. And this was just not another performance where you really see a lot of the positive attributes that Cam brings to the table. And I'm going to do probably a full episode on him on Monday. But you saw in this game, you saw the way that he can score on the interior. Like, there are some concerns. He's obviously not the most vertically explosive guy. You worry about maybe how does some of that play against NBA-level rim protectors. But in this game, you saw him score in the interior. You saw him operate as a roll man. You saw him handling the ball. You saw him drawing fouls. You saw his court mapping and his court processing. He has 4 assists. He could have had a lot more. He's just really a gifted passer. And this is a guy who, look, the detractors are going to point to the lack of, vertical explosiveness, the lack of vertical athleticism. It's not always the most aesthetically pleasing skill set, as opposed to a guy like AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson or whoever else you want to say. But he gets it done. He is a winner. They lost in this game. They should have won, if not for a, really tough last-second turnover, but they should have been going to the Final Four. He's won everything at every other level, and he just produces. And you can look at any of these games in the NCAA tournament. You can say, he didn't play well. It looks ugly. It looks this. It looks that. You look at the NCAA tournament run. He averages 22.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.3 blocks, shoots 48% from the field. Like, that's just what Cam Boozer does. I'll talk about some of the reservations. I'll probably do the full episode on it tomorrow, but he is going to be, in my opinion, a very solid NBA player. I would say a star player, in my opinion. I think that the Nets would be lucky to draft a guy like Cam Boozer or any of these other guys in the top 3. But, last thing on this game, I feel bad for his brother. Like, I feel bad for Caden Boozer because, this is kind of the, tough part about sports. It's the great part about sports, but it's also the tough part about sports. If you've ever played them, if you've ever been in these games that mean a lot to you, whether a championship game, a deep playoff game, anything, things can change in a split second like that. And, Caden Boozer, a guy who has had a very good season. He's playing alongside his brother. He obviously has shouldered a heavy load for Duke. You get the ball there. You see a guy wide open running down the court. You think it's a no-brainer pass. You make the pass. It gets tipped. It ends up in Mullins' hands. He hits a 3, and it goes from you being on top of the world going to the Final Four to a boneheaded mistake cost your team. It ends your college season. It ends your brother's college. It ends your season. It ends your brother's college career for sure. And it has a lot of people, saying, how could you do that? It's a moment that he'll remember for the rest of his life. Like, when he's 85 years old, and he's looking back on his life, that moment will be one that he always remembers, and you can't get it back. It is what it is. Like, it's over. And that's the thing that makes sports so great, but it's also the thing that can be really difficult. And from a human level, seeing that happen, seeing what, Boozer had to say, Caden Boozer in the locker room, saying he felt like he let Duke down. He felt like he let his brother down. It's tough to see, but, that's sports, man. And that's March Madness. And that game with Ian Eagle on the call, by the way, outstanding call by Ian Eagle, as always. And having him call these games and call the Final Four with CBS it's a treat. It's going to be such a treat. It's just awesome to see. But wild ending to this Duke game. And now Keaton Wagler, last remaining top draft prospect in the tournament. You could also say Burries from Arizona, but like of the top guys, Keaton Wagler's the last guy. Nets fans kind of got cheated out of a Cam Boozer Keaton Wagler matchup by this outcome. But we'll see what Wagler does against UConn. We'll see, Boozer obviously moving forward into the draft process, and we'll see if the Nets can be in one of those top 3 spots to give themselves the best chance to select a guy like Boozer. But that's all I got for you guys on today's episode of Locked On Nets. If you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy my content, take a second right now, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. And that's got a day off. They got the Hawks on Wednesday, so I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.